All right, so we're talking about tough word problems again. The first thing I want you to do is draw a picture of this and then label it with like X's and stuff. All right, say I've got a rectangle and the length is 5 more than the width is. The length is 5 more than the width. I know a classic mistake some kids are going to make. I'm going to say it one more time. The length is 5 more than what the width is. All right, length is this way. 5 more than the width. And the other one's width. Now it could be X. X would be fine, but some of you probably put 5X and X. That would be 5 times as much. I didn't say that. I said 5 more. Be careful with that. It's going to come up. All right, next thing. Let's say that they wanted you to tell them what the area was in terms of X. This is the part where you'd have to make a formula. Stick from the picture into the formula. Area. What's the formula for area? Area is what? Length times width or base times height. I'm going to use base times height. Length times width would have been just fine. Okay? And then area equals the base would be like this one, otherwise known as the length. And that would be 5 plus W times the height is W. Now the problem with this one, I would get it marked wrong. Do you know why? Parentheses, right? As otherwise, only the W is going to get times by the W. Now I've got base. Notice base is like an empty parenthesis. Any variable is like an empty parenthesis, and you drop stuff into it. All right, so there's your answer right there. My area is in terms of W. All right, let's make another one like that. This time, draw me a right triangle where the base is twice the height. Draw me a right triangle where the base is twice the height. All right, my base is not twice my height. I drew it wrong, so I'm gonna try again. There, now my base is more like twice my height. All right, and now, what should I use for them? Should I pick a number like 20 and 10? No, don't ever do that. What should I use? 2x and 2x. Good. Okay. Now, let's say that they tell me that the perimeter is what they want in terms of X. Perimeter means add up all the sides. Right? Well, I know the two of the sides, but how could I figure this one out? That would involve some thinking. See if you can figure it out. Write me the perimeter formula and see if you can figure out what to put in it. Perimeter is the one side plus the other side plus the other side. Add up sides. So perimeter is X plus 2X plus, figure it out. You can do it. How do you get a third side in a right triangle? Somebody say the formula. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. I'm going to have to use two formulas to do this one. The perimeter formula, which was just add up all the sides, and now this one. And now I'm going to stick in A and B, and I can figure out what C is. What's A? Well, that doesn't matter. Pick one of them. X. The other one's 2x. And they will equal c squared. You get what I'm doing here? I'm figuring out the third side using Pythagorean. I have to know that one. It's going to come up. All right, if you haven't got a little list of formulas, or how about this? If you're good at all these, you could have named that, then don't worry about writing it down. But if you're kind of one of these kids that's like, how am I supposed to know that formula? Well, write down a bunch that you're going to have to know. I've already told you circles are on there. You're going to have to know pi r squared. You're going to have to know circumference is pi times diameter. You'll have to know this one for triangles. You'll have to know what an isosceles triangle is. You'll have to know what a right triangle is. Isosceles, by the way, has two sides equal. All right, anyway, back to this. I'm solving for C. Is C alone yet? Well, it's close. I just have to take the square root. So the square root. And normally this would be absolute value of C. And it really is, but there could be a negative answer. Do we want a negative answer for how long a side's going to be? No, so we can ignore that on this kind of a problem and just say the normal square root of x squared plus 2x squared. That is a typical question. So now I just figured out that my perimeter is x for the one side plus 2x for the other side plus this side right here is the square root of x squared plus 2x quantity squared. And that's one goes in here then. X plus 2x plus the square root of x squared plus 2x quantity squared. There we go. Not super easy, but it's not impossible either. Yes. So are you trying to take this part here and like simplify it down? All right, so let's do that. If I take x squared plus 2x quantity squared, that would be x squared plus 4x squared, and that would be 5x squared. And so absolutely, I like the 5x squared idea. It's all underneath the square root, though. So it'd be the square root of 5x squared, but yes, I like it. Okay, so let's do it one more, and I just want to give you this one, and then have you, like, you know, go all the way through and figure out the answer for it. So you've got this circle in the backyard. It's going to be like a fire ring. You're going to like have bonfires and stuff. Okay. And you're going to say that the radius is just r. Then how long would the circumference be in terms of r? In other words, you'll have to have an r in your answer. So you don't know what the radius is. Start by drawing a picture. Label your picture. Write a formula. Stick the numbers from the picture into the formula. I'll ask it again. If I have a circle with a radius of r, what's its circumference? So what's a formula that you're supposed to know? Who's got it? Raise your hand if you've got it. It's I. What do you got? Say it a little louder. Circumference is what? Yes? There's a pi in it. I'll start with that if you want to. Pi. You're making it too complicated. It's just circumference is pi times 2 radiuses. Isn't it? Pi times 2 pi r? Oh, you're trying to finish the whole question. I don't want you to finish the whole question. I just want to know what's formula for circumference. Circumference is pi times the diameter is one I was looking for. Or the diameter is the same as 2 radiuses, right? So this is just the general form. Now I'm going to take this stuff and put it into my equation. But what would I put in? R would go in for the radius, right? R would go in for R. So this is it. This is the formula. If I replace R with R, it's still going to look just like that. That's it. Done. That's the circumference in terms of the radius. In fact, that's the normal formula you should have memorized in the first place for radius. Now, if you... Nope, that circumference tells me how far around it. The whole pi r squared thing, that's area. That's how many little squares it would take to make this thing, you know? Little squares like this. How many little squares to make that circle? As opposed to circumference is how far around it is. All right, next one. Let's do a rectangle. It is 5 times as long. Hold on a second. Olivia and Eliza, come on up here, please. It's 5 times as long as it is wide. A rectangle is 5 times as long as it is wide. The area is 500. I think you already had that, right? Now tell me what its circumference is. Not circumference, it's a better word for that on this is perimeter. Circumference is around the outside also, but it's on a circle. So this is perimeter. Find me the perimeter. If the area is 50, find the perimeter. Sorry. The area is 500, find the perimeter. So, first job, draw your picture, label it. Got it. And if it's an area is 500, I usually put the 500 on the inside because that's what area is. It's on the inside. Okay, so then write a formula. Do you get your formula would be area equals length times width, or you could use base times height. Either one would be fine. And then what is the length or the base? 5x times what is the height? X. And why am I not done? Well, I know the area is 500, so where can I put that? The A. The A is 500. You get how I can solve that? Now I divide both sides by 5, and I get 100 equals x squared. Can you solve that in your head? What's x got to be? 10. So now I know this was 10, and this was 5 times 10. So it's 10 and 50. Does that make sense? All right, yay. Did I answer the question? No. What's the question? Perimeter. What's perimeter? Perimeter is add up all the sides. Add sides. So I'm going to go perimeter equals 50 plus 50 plus 10 plus 10. 120. You see how you could be all proud of yourself that you figured out the answer, and then you're totally wrong if you leave the answer as x equals 10, because what they wanted is the perimeter. So make sure you go back to what was the question. The question was find the perimeter. What? This is the kind of stuff that's on your test. All right, so let's do another one. Two numbers and add up to 16. How could you write the two numbers using the same variable? You can't say like x plus y equals 16. You have to write them both the same variable. If you know they add up to 16, let's say that you pick one of them to be x. What's the other one? Have to add up to 16, and one of them's x. What's the other one? No, the other one can't be x, so they're the same thing. 16 minus x. There you go. There's two numbers that add up to 16. X and 16 minus x. What if they said the sum of two numbers that add up to 16? Well, then I just put plus. There's the sum of two numbers that add up to 16. Now think about it. What is the sum of two numbers that add up to 16? 16. Notice that the x and the minus x would cancel. See how it works? It'd be 16. All right. What about the product of two numbers that add up to 16? Well, here's my two numbers that add up to 16. What's the product of that? What's product mean? Girls, stick with me. You know this math is not that hilarious. All right, so I'm going to say 8 times. Here we go. That's the product. That's the product of two numbers that add up to 16. What if I said, I want these two numbers that add up to 16, I want you to say that those were the legs of a triangle. What would the third side be? If the two legs of a triangle add up to 16, what's its other side? Well, first of all, remember the whole thing about if you can draw a picture, you should draw a picture? Draw a picture. One of the legs is x. One of them 16 minus x. Oh, it's a pencil. Not moving pencil. It means it can't be drawn. Draw me a picture. Drawing. All right, so here's my triangle. And the two legs, remember that means not the hypotenuse. The two legs are x and 16 minus x. Okay? It'll be easier now that you got a picture. All I want to know is what's the other side. Ah, it's like C, and it's like, oh, I know a formula. Go ahead, write the formula down. Stick the numbers into the formula. Good question. Right triangle. I didn't say isosceles, but I never said what kind, so it's a good point. Right triangle. Okay, so do you get that it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared is the formula I needed? And then I need to put this number in, and I'm going to say x squared. And the other one is an empty spot squared. You take the parentheses for every variable, just make it an empty parentheses, and drop in 16 minus x. Otherwise, you might just by accident only square the x. We got to square both. And then that's going to equal c squared. And then I take the square root of both sides, so the c will be alone, and then I got it. And then right there, you'll have your fourth chance to forget that the absolute value is what you're getting. And then you'd have two answers. But why do I not care this time? Because it can't be negative. Why can't it be negative? Because you can't have a negative side. Think about that. How could that be negative? That can be negative. So we throw out that absolute value thing, we just say C. C is that big nasty thing right there. There's the third side in your triangle. The square root of x squared plus 16 minus x, quantity squared. That is the third side. You will be able, if it says to simplify it, you'll have to simplify it. One thing I want to make sure you get that's really important, some kids get this one and they think, I know this one. The answer is x minus 2. Don't ever try to do that. Here's why. The reason it doesn't work is when you say that you know the answer to a square root, you're saying that the same thing times itself will equal this. So if I say x minus 2, why doesn't that work? Because watch, when I actually multiply those together, it doesn't equal this, does it? What if we change it to plus 2 and plus 2? It still won't equal that, will it? Exactly, and then if it was a plus 2 and a minus 2, you haven't got the square root anymore, because it has to be the exact same thing. So bottom line is you don't know what the square root of that is. You cannot simplify that. The square root, you leave it like this. It is not x minus 12. If you thought it was x minus 12, you're saying that x minus 12 times x minus 12 should equal that, and it doesn't. Okay, so don't, a lot of kids made that mistake in the last test. I just want you to remind you, it's going to come up again. Don't simplify that. You can't. All right, next thing. You had one on your homework that was tricky, and I want you to look at it. Everybody take out your homework. Don't expect you to be perfect on it. It was tough. Number 6. There's an absolute minimum you could have done on number 6. If you were really trying, you would have done something. What could you have done? If nothing else, could you read me the equation that's there? It says y equals. Doesn't that seem like something you should graph? Yeah, so I hope you graphed it. Y equals, and I'm going to reverse this, negative x squared plus 6. Does that show you that it's a flipped parabola? It's moved up 6. Do you get it? Sort of looks like that. Okay, so you should have graphed that. And then you should know that the triangle, it says it's isosceles, and then it goes like this. It has one of the corners right at 0, 0. It looks something like that. It doesn't have to be exactly like that. You can make yours more tall and skinny if you want to. Like I could make it like this. Okay, but that corner has to be at the origin. So I kind of... There we go. Okay, so the blue one, the red one, doesn't matter, but that's generally what your picture looks like. Now here's where a lot of kids got stumped, because they even knew this much, then there was like about all they could seem to do. But can you label this? Remember, we don't know how long they are, so what should I use for this distance right here? Just think. How long is that from there to there? X. Think about it. It's an X direction, right? And what's the other thing you need for a triangle? The height. And what's the height? Think about this. If that one was X, what's the dotted line? Y. And then some of you are going to say, but wait a minute, server, you're supposed to have the answer only with one variable. You can't use an X and a Y, and you're right. So instead of using Y right there, you can use that. See? That's what Y is. Or this one, same thing. So that Y right there, I'm not supposed to use a Y for that. I'm supposed to use an X. And as soon as I realize that it's Y equals this stuff, then I can just say that it's 6 minus X squared right there. And now, could you express the area of it? Sure. Just your base, which is X times height, which is 6 minus X squared. And then you'd be able to get your answer. So I don't want to tell you anymore. I want you to finish it from there. So if I were you, I'd sketch that one. It's because most of you had not finished it on your own. And I might even write the formula out that I just mentioned. The formula for area of a triangle is, what was it again? Area of a triangle is what? 1/2 times the base times the height. And then those parentheses, you drop in parentheses for the base and drop in parentheses for the height, and then put in what we know. All right. Now let's talk about the new worksheet. We'll do a few of these together. All right, here is your worksheet. Handing them out right now for those of you listening along at home or in my 6th hour class. Because I'm not going to be in 6th hour today because I'm helping take care of some of my dad's estate stuff. So thankfully they have a nice stub. Mr. Fry, who's a great guy. Thank you, Mr. Fry. Okay, so everybody look at numero uno, number 1. First question says 5 more than 3 times a number X. All you have to do is write a statement. This is not an equation. It does not need an equals. Make sure you don't just assume that you want equations. A lot of these are not equations. They're just like statements. They're called a expression. All right, 5 more than 3 times the number X. Here's where everybody kind of messes up. That's not right. What did I do wrong? It should be 5 plus, not times. All right. Now, could I put, here's 3 times the number and here's 5 more than that? That's the same thing. That are fine. Okay. The rest of those, I really think you can handle it yourself. Just remember, it's not an equation. It's a little expression. So the next one's a number X increased by 5 and then tripled. Notice that that implies the order, so you got to know where to put parentheses. All right, we're going to skip down to number 7. That's the next one I want to do with you is number 7. I want to help you. I'm not going to finish it all the way. Number 7. A rectangle is inscribed in a circle of diameter 12. Picture. Remember, anything you can draw a picture for, you should. Rectangle inside of a circle. There. That's not perfect, but that's basically it. All right, here's the killer part that just drove me crazy until one of the kids figured it out. If I try to do this as my diameter of the circle, it doesn't match up. The rectangle and the circle don't have the same thing there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this has to be a little longer to meet the diagonal. Or, I just gave it away. All right. So, you draw it that way. You get that is 12. As soon as you draw it that way, all of a sudden it becomes much easier. Okay? And it wants us to say the width is X. Notice you see that in the problem, part A, it says the width is X. So that means that this distance right here, that's X. That distance right there, not so nice, but you could figure it out. And once you have it, you'll be able to express the perimeter as a function of its width. Perimeter has to be a blah, 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 blah with a bunch of x's in it. Sorry, that's a plus. A bunch of x's in it. Okay? So what is perimeter? Perimeter is add up the sides. Add sides. So on the perimeter of the rectangle, it's going to be x plus 12 plus something I don't know yet. This thing, the question mark. How do you figure out how long that is? Well, it's a right triangle. Do you get that there's a formula that would tell me how long that is? A squared plus b squared equals c squared, and we can figure out this side right here. I'll let you finish that. Once you've got it, you can put it right there. Make sure your answer has an x in it, which it will. Oh, wait a minute. Is it perimeter of the rectangle or perimeter of the triangle? I'm just asking. Does it say perimeter? It says perimeter of the rectangle. I'm sorry. It isn't add up x plus 12. It's still going to do this same basic thing. You need to know how long this is. But the perimeter on a rectangle is 2 lengths plus 2 widths. I know that formula. And I don't know the length yet. I'm going to leave it empty. I do know the width. The width is x. Okay, so now, what's the length? I still come back to needing to know this right here. You have to figure that out. I'm not giving you the whole thing here. I've pretty much brought the wildebeest back to the nest, but you have to finish the job. If you remember my reference from the other day. Okay. Then it's going to ask you on part B to do the same exact thing except with the area. Well, all you already got all the work done. Once you figured out the question mark, which is going to be the square root of some nasty thing that has x in it, then to do the area, you just use a different formula. You don't use that formula. You use area equals length times width. Make a simpler formula. So once you're done with the first part of 7, the second part of 7 will be easy. All right, moving on. Number 8, this one always confuses people. I want you to give it a shot. Make yourself a little graph like this, and I'll give you a hint. Graph the x squared plus 1 first, and then figure out where the p has to be. So graph the y equals x squared plus 1 first. That'll be easy. I'm going to pause for a second while you try to set that up. This is problem 8 that we're talking about here. Okay, so most kids have got the parabola on there that's moved up 1. Yay, I can do that. But what's this p that's called x comma y? Well, I'm going to just pick any point I want. I don't care where it is. I'm going to pick right there. And I'm going to call that x comma y. Any point on the parabola. Any point you want. Then, final thing is, what is the question? What are they asking? The distance from P to the origin as a function of x, meaning they want an x in the answer. So this distance right there, do you see how that's setting up to be a triangle? That's what you got to look for. Anytime you're doing x-y axis, think triangle. Okay? How long is the bottom here? X. How long is the height here? It's y is what I would want to say, but since y is x squared plus 1, that's really smart. Instead of using y here, you can use that fact that they gave you. All right, from there you have to finish it. One more that I want to help you with. Please flip the page, turn to numero 9. Yes. A piece of wire, pi y long, is bent into a circle. I read the whole thing to get a perspective on what shape is it. So, because first hour I didn't read the whole thing, and I was like, well, a piece of line, or a piece of string or whatever it is, metal, wire, okay. And I didn't draw it as a circle. That's kind of useless. I want a circle, right? Okay, so then I've got my circle, and now I'm supposed to label it with something. What do I know? Yes, I know its circumference. The distance all the way around it is what? Pi y. All right, now, if I know that that's the distance all the way around it, now, how do they get off asking me for the area then? Well, I know the formula for the area. Area is pi r squared. But they haven't told me r. But can I figure it out? Yes, you can. You figure out what the radius has to be using some other formula. Again, I'm going to leave you to figure that out. Hopefully you've memorized that formula about circumference. It's going to come up a lot. All right, last thing is on number 10. A lot of people thought that they were asking for equations there. They are not. Look at number 10 quick. I thought number 9 is the last one, but I'm going to talk about 10 just briefly. It says two numbers add up to 16. Express the product of the two numbers in terms of a single variable. Okay, I know we talked about this, didn't we? So, remember, what are the two numbers? X and what? 16 minus x. That's right, you cannot use two variables. So there's my two numbers. And then it wants it to be a what? A product. So what should I put between them? Product means multiply. Now if I do it like this, I get it wrong also. Why? There you go. That's the product. A lot of kids were trying to find the rest of the equation. It doesn't say to write an equation. Done. That's part A. Now you can handle part B and etc. All right. Now, this one's a smidge long because they're so hard. So I'm going to say for today, now don't scribble them into oblivion because we're going to do them later, but you may skip numbers 15 and 17. But the rest of them, I've given you a good head start. It's very doable now. Okay, I want to see your full effort on this thing. I'll be available to help you for the rest of the hour one-on-one. And this test will be coming up soonish, like maybe by Friday. And you'll be fine. The average grade last year was probably some sort of a B. It wasn't awful. You'll be able to handle it. All right. You have time, but not tons of time to learn how to do this.